It is the year 2472, and the Earth has suffered a great calamity. Hundreds of years of popular culture have vanished. Without the sacred films and texts for guidance, civilization is devoid of anything cool. Then, 3 incubation chambers are unearthed, and from within, men from the time of the great blockbusters emerge. Now, through highly interesting conversations, they share invaluable insight about what once was. The movies, the shows, the comics, toys, and books. This is
The Hyperspace.
Podcasting in the 25th century.
Welcome in, podcast pioneers, to the 6th season of the Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century, the interwebs first, and still, after 6 seasons only, podcast. My name's Matt.
I'm Jared.
I'm Mike.
Season 6. We are here.
Man, when was the last show we put out? It was probably
Obi-Wan. Oh, you mean our
the
season
regular
5?
show.
Maybe March?
Holy crap.
Took a little time
break.
off. Well, you know what? We had a lot to do in the interim. There's a lot to fill.
Yes, we did. What have you guys been up to in the 25th century during our hiatus?
Oh, well, it's I don't get out much here in the 25th century. I mean,
Yes.
it's like it's
I know you go to the 7-Eleven sometimes.
Yeah,
and
but
harass people.
so I thought I'd go out to one of the national parks out here, which is basically just a big parking lot.
Yes.
It's huge, but there's no buildings in it, so it's an expanse. So you can go out there, and so I didn't walk. I kind of mind tranced over there, but it was okay. It was all right. There was nothing really happening. There were some like drones floating around, and some bald-headed jumpsuit people, but that's like my neighbors.
Yeah.
So I didn't really gain any kind of epiphanic moment. So
Epiphanic? Is that a word?
it is now. It's the 25th
I
century.
see. Mike, what have you
what
been
about
up
you
to?
Oh, let's see. I had the side of my face sliced open,
Yes.
peeled back like a orange skin.
Yeah. That was right before we took our break.
Yep. So that, I healed up pretty good there. You get really,
Yeah. You do. You have a cool. I
Oh, there it
remember. I saw you over the summer, and you have kind of a cool Frankenstein scar.
yeah. The swelling's slowly going down. So
Yeah. So you don't have any more foreign objects in your ear.
well, apparently I had one in my cheek as well. So they had
Oh
to,
man,
I was in for
it's those
5
implants in the
hours.
25th century.
Teach you to go to
Well, that's what
Alpha
happens
5.
when they have to upgrade them.
Yeah,
You're
I
on
know.
SETI Alpha 6, didn't you? Huh?
Well,
Oh,
I just,
Last time you do that, man.
They pulled the SETI eels out of Mike's head. Wow.
Yeah. So just reading and playing video games.
What about
Got
you?
back into doing some reading. Haven't done that in a long time.
Yeah, that's cool. For me, well, it's just been a normal summer here in the 25th century. Not much happening. It's pretty hot. There's a lot of weirdos milling around outside the tubes. And I've been trying to, I was thinking back on a lot of the entertainment that we had in the year of 2022, and it's been a pretty mixed bag so far.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I remember it being a mixed bag from when we were in the 21st century.
Hold on, Biff. Don't give it up. No, you're right. It's been a great summer. It's actually the return of the blockbusters. So
The stores are coming back.
yes, they're coming back with the VHS of all things. Retro is in, but no, it's
right.
there was a big hiatus here from the blockbuster movies, and I tell you what, this summer hit with one of the biggest ones I've seen in a long time.
Well, yeah, I think if you're referring to Top Gun Maverick, you are correct. It is a movie that has had legs that I don't think anyone could have anticipated. It it's been breaking records, and they sat on this movie for 2 years. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, if you're Paramount and you're like, everybody's pushing stuff out on streaming, you know, and I think there was some pressure to do that, but they were like, no, no, we got this present that you can't open until May of 2022. But I'm sure, they thought, man, we're setting on this great movie. But I don't even think they knew how popular it would end up being. I mean, it's still, I think after, almost 3 months of release in the top five every week.
I think it's a good testament to writers and producers understanding how to balance nostalgia and a fun, fresh movie. And I think you can look at some other movies that came out this summer, and like Jurassic Park or Jurassic World Dominion, where nostalgia has kind of, just become like a vehicle to just put out a fast and not cheap, but just a fast and kind of like less than great movie, Whereas, I have to give Tom Cruise a heck of a lot of credit, for his ups and downs in the news over the past 15, 20 years. You got to give the guy some amazing credit. I mean, he truly is possibly one of the world's last great movie stars, and he cares about the product he puts out. And that's evident in his Mission Impossible movies, his recent sci-fi flicks that have been, I think, fantastic. I talk about Oblivion, and The Edge of Tomorrow was fantastic as well.
Yeah.
And then you got this come out, which I'll be honest, when it first was announced, I was excited because it's Top Gun. But I didn't expect much out of it. I thought it would just kind of be like, like a callback throwaway movie that they're just kind of like cashing in on. But it was a lot. The movie was a well-crafted movie with a lot of heart and some amazing action, and taking cinematography to like an incredible new, like setting the bar in different ways that movies have never been pushed to do before. And it was really cool to watch. It was like a pretty amazing experience. I saw it 3 times in the theater.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it's been the only movie I've seen twice this year. And I think initially I was kind of like you, Matt. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of cool. They're bringing this back. And I think a lot of the early promotional stuff they put out online was like, hey, the actors are really in these F-18 Super Hornets. They're in the back seat of these things pulling real G's, and nothing is processed, nothing is green screen. We're doing this all for real. And I thought, well, that's kind of a novel thing these days. And then the first trailer came out. I was like, man, that looks really cool. And I think Mike can probably speak to this, because I don't think Mike has any kind of real love or connection for the original, because the original is pretty thin. And I think me and Matt give it a huge pass because it was kind of a staple of our VHS growing up.
Yeah,
I watched Top Gun probably once a week for, I don't know, a couple of summers in a row.
Oh yeah.
And I was intimately familiar with it. But Mike, I remember you saying like, well, this Tom Cruise makes good movies these days. The director's solid. I think Maverick's going to be great, but Top Gun, the original, is nothing to write home about. So tell us kind of what your experience coming to that movie was.
I saw the first one once, and I didn't really think it was anything special. I didn't think it was particularly good, to be honest with you. So I never saw it again, ever. And I never had any desire to see it. And then when I heard the sequel was being made, I was kind of like, okay. But then I think it was more like, even when I saw it, my expectations, like, when you hear something so great, you're like, well, that can't be that great. I mean, it's just kind of, the stuff can be overhyped. But it was strange that we went like 2 or 3 weekends in a row and they were sold out. And so I was kind of, and I heard everyone just kind of talking about how wonderful it was. But then, of course, the Da Vinci Code was a bestseller. So I finally saw it, and it was, it's just great. It was just an old-fashioned movie. There was nothing, it wasn't trying to be anything important. It was just trying to be entertainment. And it was it had a really cool story. They didn't try to like pretend like the first one never happened. It was tied straight into the original movie, which we watched beforehand, and still that movie does not hold up. But some of the flying stuff is neat, especially for that time. But they weren't embarrassed by the first one. They didn't try to sweep it under the rug. They embraced it wholeheartedly, and I thought that they concocted a cool story for this one that made Maverick relevant, and also had a new team of younger fighter pilots. The stuff with Val Kilmer was amazing. I mean, the guy is still a great actor even when he doesn't say anything. So yeah, it was just good, fun movie. It's a movie I'll look forward to seeing again. So
I don't recall it word for word, but I liked you put a thing on Facebook after you saw it. It was kind of your brief paragraph review of it. And you said, it doesn't, it embraces its hero. It doesn't try to deconstruct him. It actually elevates him while still, bringing in, all the new. It balanced the old and the new very well. And
I think my favorite thing about it, and it was really unexpected, but they actually set it up, was the fact that he had to fly in the same plane he flew in the first one.
Right.
And I thought that was really clever, and it was like a great scene with him and Goose's son where they had to work together. And the movie just hit all the right notes, it just nailed it. It was just like it was a movie you felt good after you watched it. You were just like, oh, that's cool. That's neat. And, everyone had a happy ending, and no one was,
although
didn't make you feel bad about being an American or anything like that. In fact, it was kind of interesting. They never do tell you who the other country is.
I know
they're going after.
They're hedging their box office bets there.
Yeah, it's like, well, they have those planes,
but
we need to stop those guys.
You never like pause in the movie to consider it. It wasn't important. Mike
drinking from the ether,
drinking from the warping ether. But you never cared, and that's a testament to the writing. Matter. And the cast was great in the movie. The action was incomparable. It was amazing. People will try to emulate and ape that kind of stuff for years to come. And it was just a fun movie.
But it's funny, is because it was aping the stuff we grew up on.
It's really, it's funny. I saw this interesting bit of trivia on it, and they kind of address it early on in the movie. They state the objectives of the mission, and Tom Cruise's character Maverick says, well, this is a perfect mission for the F-35, except for GPS jamming, whatever they say. And they said that because all these missions, the F-35 today would have been the ideal plane to fly any of these missions, but they designed the mission so they had to use the Hornet because the Hornet was the only plane they could put 2 people in so they could film. So it was kind of clever. It was clever how they kind of like headed off at the pass the naysayers of who would have been like, well,
we would have just used
F-35 would have been
sure,
just exciting stuff, really fun.
And it was part of something that sort of irritated me was the first trailer. The first shot that in that trailer is the F-14 flying away from the camera. And it's an F-14.
Right.
And I was like, huh, that's interesting. I thought they were using F-18s in this movie. But then I didn't think much about it. And then in the film, when the admiral's going over the stuff, he's like, they even got some of we got some 5th generation fighter planes here, but they even still have some of our old F-14s on the ground. Right. And I was like, oh, there's no way that's not coming back into this somehow.
And even though you knew at some point you were going to see it, it was still great how they did it.
I didn't pick up on that when he was like, oh, well, look, they got some of our F-14s here. I was like, oh, okay, they set that up. All right. I just didn't think about it. I didn't think it was relevant.
But it was cool because for years, of course, Matt and I probably thought, if there's a Top Gun sequel, of course, it'll be, you see Maverick back in an F-14 somehow. And I thought the way they did it by, just having the same, Goose's kid now behind him in an F-14, and the way he beat those 2 5th generation fighters in an F-14.
But they did it, I felt like, in a way that was viable. I bought it because he took one out instantly. Yes, I think you feel like if there'd been 2,
caught by surprise, right?
He would have been no way.
But that one jet did that crazy move where it like stalled and then turned in midair, and
it was the one expletive.
Oh, it was like
expletive.
What the F was that? Which was hilarious.
Yeah, and I will say, I took my sons to see it, and they both loved it. They thought it was fantastic.
That's
cool. They felt like the movie was only 15 minutes long. They were like, how long was that movie?
And you know what I like about that?
2 hours.
We've talked about this before on the podcast, but that was one of the first movies I remember going to see by myself in '86. Yeah, Top Gun. One of the first. There's a handful, but that was one of the first. And I always, as Jared said, we loved that movie growing up for all its flaws and whether it holds up to new viewers or not. That's something that I always hold, and I always will hold it dear in my heart. And it's kind of cool to think that maybe Maverick, for younger viewers now, 10, 11 years old, even though he's an older actor, maybe this movie will be that for somebody. And they'll be like, because this was a fun movie. It was one of those kind of movie experiences in the theater that you want. This is a movie you go in, you have fun, you come out going, that was amazing. And you talk about it for a week. And that's how movies used to be a lot of the time. Before, there's a lot of heavy movies out there these days that, the experience isn't the fun movie experience that I remember as a kid. So I'm glad there's movies coming out now that kids can go and watch and walk out of and remember and be excited about and want to see again and talk to about, talk to their friends about it. It's amazing.
To be fair, I'll say Spider-Man was that.
Spider-Man was great too. 100%.
Yeah.
In fact, it's actually been a pretty good little resurgence in the theater now for movies.
Well, yeah. And I think the fact that Maverick has performed like the blockbusters of old, because now the model is, you get like a month in theaters if you're lucky. And then in 3 weeks from there, you're on demand already.
Yeah, you're right.
And it reminds me of the old newspaper ads. 26th exciting week.
Yes. And that's the kind of legs this movie has had. And it's still,
it's still number 5.
It's still in the top 5 after 3 months, which is insane.
So what'll be interesting to see is if the new Avatar has any legs, because when Avatar came out, it was a blockbuster itself. It was a huge movie,
and it had legs too.
Yeah,
it stuck around for a long time.
But that wasn't like, it was such an anomaly. I didn't even see Avatar in a theater.
I didn't either.
It was, well, first of all, I think the thing for me personally was, the humans are the bad guys, and it's like, it's kind of like a self-loathing on the part of the filmmaker. But aside from that, it was it looked like Dance of the Wolves, which, you know, Dance of the Wolves is an amazing movie. And I think there was, when your lead characters are so obviously unrealistic, it's like it's hard for you to kind of like have sympathy for them. You know what I mean?
I
Like
never once rooted for the main character in the movie.
Yeah, it's like you watch Dance with Wolves, and the Native Americans are like real human beings. So, you know, when Kevin Costner kind of like takes their side, you kind of buy it a little better. In Avatar, it's just kind of like, okay, whatever, I guess.
Yeah. And the big thing with that was the whole novelty of the 3D.
Yeah, that's what really pushed it.
People just wanted to go witness a theme park attraction, you know, and that's I think that was a large part of its appeal. And, you know, I mean, the response to the trailer for the new one has been pretty muted, I would say. I mean, nobody's like, oh man, I got to watch that trailer again.
Plus, everyone who died in it is back.
Yeah.
So it's like, is it a sequel? Is it just like a remake of the first one? I don't know.
Who knows? But before we move off of Maverick, I had sort of an interesting experiment myself. Charlie, our friend Charlie, had never seen Top Gun. He wanted to see Maverick. So he came over about 9:00 in the morning, and we watched the original, and then we basically drove to the theater and watched the sequel. So he got a lot of Top Gun in that day. Yeah. And after he watched the first one, he's like, I don't even really know what that was about. And I was like,
it was guys in underwear, lots of guys in underwear.
He also made the point of, and I sort of noticed this too, watching the 4K. This is terrible, but Kelly McGillis is probably 15 years older than him, or seems like she is.
Yeah, she's yeah.
It's
trying not to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to come across as a jerk.
And I don't guess you've seen her lately.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Why wasn't I cast? I don't know. It's a mystery.
We talked about. I remember our friend Rick. Rick saw the sequel with us, and he goes, "So, you think we're gonna get some McGillis in here?" And
we did. Like, they showed her for a few seconds.
Well, true, but then he Googled her while he was waiting in line for his concessions, and he was like, "Whoop, probably not."
When I was in college back in the mid 90s, one of my buddy's girlfriends was from Key West, and Kelly McGillis is from Key West. At least I don't know if she still lives there, but she was. And she would tell stories about how like Kelly McGillis had become a complete like hermit and like recluse, and would just be like skulking around Key West, and you would just kind of like run into her in like dark alleys.
You know who I think of? Go ahead, finish your story.
No, and it was just like I remember back in the 90s thinking, man, this is like 10 years after one of the biggest movies of the 80s, and this is only like a decade later, and she's like a complete wreck. So I mean,
that's crazy.
I obviously had no expectations of seeing her in this movie.
Not quite as bad as the girl from Voyager, I will say that.
Are you talking about the girl who played Kess?
Yes.
The Bajoran?
She lived in Tennessee.
No, not the Bajoran.
Yeah.
She was the little blonde.
Yes.
My God.
Really?
She was in Tennessee, like where me and Mike were from.
She got arrested for flashing
she like couldn't
children.
She couldn't keep her clothes on.
What? I gotta look her up.
She looks terrible.
Hold on.
I think she's been hanging out with Kelly McGillis.
It's really that bad? Oh man.
It's worse actually.
Yeah, I don't know what her name is. Her
Jennifer Lean.
It's a shame too, because she was really a beautiful.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think when she was arrested, she was naked and they had to put clothes on her or something.
God almighty.
Oh, Mike, what the hell is that face you're making?
Yeah, I mean, my God. You
Yeah.
gotta feel bad for these people. I mean, something just obviously like a mental
Yeah,
illness.
something
But
went
there
wrong.
was too many transporter accidents.
Didn't bring all the brain cells back or something.
What we got back,
Did
we
it
had to arrest with no
What did-
clothes on.
Well, we got back. Didn't remain sane very longer.
Oh, that's a shame. That's too bad. Well,
Hey, something I did watch during the hiatus was the motion picture, Star Trek the motion picture, the 4K remaster. Now, did you guys ever watch that?
Yeah, on Paramount I did.
Did you watch it?
Mhm.
is it on streaming? Because if it's not,
I think it's on Paramount.
Yeah, it's on Paramount Plus.
But don't worry,
own
the
that.
disc is coming out in September.
Oh yeah, he
I'll
likes
get
the
it then.
disc. Yeah. Oh no, I thought it looked fantastic.
It looked good. It translated well.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
did update some of the effects. I will say though, the one thing about the 4K version, or the director's edition, I should say, is I think it was a mistake to show V'ger in his entirety,
Interesting.
because I
You
think
mean the actual
when you actually see
structure of V'ger?
the exterior shot of almost the full ship when he's above the earth,
Mhm.
I feel like that shot diminishes his size actually.
Well,
Because I feel like when in the original version it's so big you can't get it on camera.
yeah, I mean that's fair.
So that was the only thing about it. I love that movie. I love that the new version is going to have a theatrical cut in 4K and the extended television version in 4K as well, which was the version I really kind of grew up on. I saw it in the theater, but the version I had on VHS was that extended cut.
Yeah,
which
that's
had-
the only thing they put on home video for years.
and has that great shot of Shatner coming out of the ship, and you can see the soundstage.
Yes, that was great.
I have a weird memory of the motion picture, the music in particular, because I didn't see the motion picture until years later. I saw Khan before the motion picture.
Yeah, same.
And I remember being in third grade. I was in Connecticut, and I was in gym class, and the gym teacher's like, we were like, back in the day, you used to have to climb a rope, like 3,000 feet high,
Sure.
in third grade, and touch the top of the gymnasium and hope you don't fall to your death. And this was a common thing.
Well, you did have that mat that was about that thick at the bottom of the.
That would have saved at least one of your ankles, maybe. But I remember for that day, he says, "Hey guys," he's like, "I brought in the Star Trek soundtrack," and I used to watch Star Trek the show, like, years before that, like every Tuesday night or whatever it was on, and I'm like, I love Star Trek, and he puts it on, and it was obviously the motion picture theme, which they then used again, of course, in Generations, but I had never heard it before, and I was so mad. I'm like, what is this? What is this? Like, I wanted the space, the final front. I was expecting like the Star Trek intro. So, but that was the first time I ever heard the music was in gym class in third grade. But I never forgot it because I always loved that. I love that music.
That score is fantastic. It's one of Jerry Goldsmith's, like,
It was great.
it's
so
a
good.
gem in his crown.
Yeah,
But
I would say so.
that was funny. But then years later, of course, I saw the motion picture. I'm like, oh, I put two
Well,
and two together.
that's where it came from.
I was fortunate. I saw it in a theater when it came out. I got
The
to
motion
have-
picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember seeing it with my uncle, and it was the scene where the sky dock where Kirk and Scotty are flying around, and my uncle, I'll never forget him sitting next to me, and he goes, it looks so real. And I thought, man, it really, I just love that scene. And
yeah.
and then a few years later, he was one of the first people I knew that had a VCR, and he actually got a copy of it on VHS. So I got to watch it again as a kid after it had come out in the theater. So anyway, motion picture I really love. And
Yeah.
And,
I had it
actually, I was just saying at the time that you were recording this, we just lost another Star Trek original
Oh yes,
Nichelle Nichols just passed away at 89 years old, unfortunately. But I mean, she was kind of going downhill these past few years, and
she's the pictures that I had seen. I think she was one of the she kept doing conventions probably long after she probably maybe should have stopped.
Well, I read she had eventually retired from.
Oh, did she retire from doing that? Okay. But it's so crazy to look at Shatner, who's 91 now.
He's unstoppable.
And he was just did San Diego Comic-Con.
He just went into space.
he was just literally in Tampa like 3 days ago at Comic-Con.
Oh, he was. That's right.
Yeah. And what was sad is a buddy of mine went and sent me a picture, and the audience for William Shatner was very sparse. Like,
dang,
it was almost an empty like meeting room.
Kids today.
I mean, there was like maybe 1 out of every 10 seats full. And
man, that makes me wish I would have gone now.
Apparently,
how's that possible?
Apparently he wasn't making a lot of sense either. So, but I mean, you got to think these guys, I mean, to their credit,
maybe he had a few.
To their, I'll never forget that
the Wrath of Khan pre-show from Fathom Events.
God, Jared and I got to watch the Wrath of Khan in the theater for Fathom.
This poor man trying to interview him and get cogent answers out of him.
Well, you know,
hey Bill, when you went to blah blah blah, that was really something.
And he gets that Shatner burp talk. I was like,
yeah, like the Carrie Fisher talk, always stifling a belch.
It's so funny, but good on him. I hope he keeps going to the day he can't. So
yeah,
91.
I know. I saw that a few months back. I told Terry, it's like, we really need to go and get one of those pictures. If we're gonna ever do it, I mean, now's the time. And then I just totally forgot about it. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah, but all my childhood heroes are starting to leave, which is a sad part of life. But I saw this great meme with a young Nichelle Nichols from the Star Trek back in the day, and she's on the Enterprise, and the meme was it's like, where am I? It's like, am I on the Enterprise? And there's James Doohan, and she's like, Jimmy. He's like, welcome. He's like, it's great to see you back. And DeForest Kelly was there, and Scotty had this whole thing saying, she's like, is this real? Is this real? And he's like, it's real to them. He says, and that's all that matters, because they'll always remember you like this. And it was a neat compressed little meme that said a lot. And like, they'll always remember you, and they'll always have you like this with Star Trek. And I'm thinking, there's few actors out there that have become that role as themselves. And they own that, and that's who they are. William Shatner, of course, is that way, and Leonard Nimoy is that way, and Nichelle Nichols will always be Uhura. And they're lucky in that regard, because they have fans that have outlived them, and then they carry on in that role forever, and they're always going to be a part of it. So they're never forgotten in Star Trek or Star Wars for that matter. So some of these actors are lucky in the sense that they get immortality, where some actors just fade away in their roles. But she gets to live on forever as Uhura, which is the only role that anyone ever wanted to see her in.
Well, that's true. I couldn't tell you 3 other things that
Snow Dogs.
Snow Dogs. Okay.
She was Cuba Gooding Jr.'s mother.
Okay. Well,
Iconic.
she was also in that TV show Heroes.
Was she?
Yeah, and I don't remember what capacity, but it's one of those things where you see the actor, you're like, oh, well, there's Uhura, or you can't, you're just like, there'll never be anything else.
Iconic, just like Leonard Nimoy will always be.
Oh yeah,
Bilbo Baggins video guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. In the middle of the earth, in the land of the Shire.
Who talked him into that?
I don't know.
Did he come to somebody and be like, I'm gonna push my weight around a little bit. I'm Spock, and I'm gonna do my dream project here.
Oh yeah, he wanted to do all kinds of weird stuff.
He was kind of a weirdo.
Yeah, a little bit, but He was.
It's funny of all the bad stuff people like to say about Shatner. If you read the These Are the Voyages book, when they talk about the episodes and they interview the guest stars, they almost all unanimously say the same thing about Nimoy, is that he was kind of cold and distant.
Yeah, he was odd, kind of.
But they loved Shatner. They almost all loved Shatner. So,
well, he was a people's person. He seemed like.
Too bad he never learned his castmates' names or.
Yeah, what was that video you sent? He was misnaming them. He may have done that on purpose.
Like, I remember I worked. I would work like it's like.
Well, see, that was the point.
Like George Takei. He's like, yeah, I saw him on set
like one day a week.
I'd work with him like every now and then, but I didn't know him. It's like, and it's just so bizarre. But it's great. It's all part of the mythos of who William Shatner and Kirk are.
Sure.
I'm just going to mention that I've been showing my son some stuff.
Are you still allowed near schools right now?
Hey, look, I'm not the girl from Voyager, okay?
Okay.
One thing I've been doing recently, and it's sort of interesting, it's kind of been very organic. Like for years, I've been trying to, as a father, you try to like bring your child into the things that you like. And I think we've talked about this before. There's so much out there that it's hard to get them to zero in on the stuff that you want them to zero in on. But recently, my oldest son, who's 12 now, I don't know what happened, but it's just clicked. We've started watching Star Wars. He loves them. He loves the movies. He loves the original trilogy. He loves the prequels. He has no interest in, and I don't say anything because I don't want to. I try not to taint his perspective. Sure. He doesn't have any interest in watching the sequel trilogy, but he did enjoy Rogue One. He did enjoy Solo. And then when I mentioned, I hung up a couple of you remember my special edition movie posters, Jared?
Yes.
Well, I hung up a couple of those because we're making a movie room and they saw the dates on them. They're like, Daddy, I thought you said this came out when you're little. It says 1997. So I explained, I said, well, the versions we watched were not the versions I saw in the theater. They kind of updated them. So he pulled out the DVDs and he's like, is this the theatrical version? I go, yeah. He goes, oh, I want to watch this. I want to see this. And so we've also started watching X-Files, which he loves.
Wow.
And Lost. Me, him, and Jamie, we're all rewatching Lost together. We're like a couple episodes into season 2. And he's just into it. It's really like, it's just interesting. He's already developing theories on Lost, who the others are, and he'll say something like, well, I think that guy is such and such. And then he'll notice like stuff. Like, I don't know if you remember in the first season of X-Files, there's a character he was like a UFO guy. And at the end of the episode, he gets abducted.
Yes.
And Max was his name. And he had a hat. And then Mulder, which I never noticed, Mulder kept his hat in his
It
office. And a few episodes
had
later,
like a MUFON on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a few episodes in, David goes, oh yeah, look, he's got Max's hat hanging up in his
that's interesting
office.
To be able to binge X-Files. I would watch it as it would come out, and I missed it a lot, but I remember always enjoying it when it came. Like, I catch it on TV, but I didn't make it a point to watch it. But I think that would be a great bingeable show to take off and watch, because you probably, like you said, you catch those things.
Yeah, well, and he's paying attention. The thing is and this is the same thing with Star Wars now. This is what's different. He's paying attention to the story. Mm-hmm. Like he's into it. Yeah, it's like it's not just like, oh, okay, there was a cool fight scene. He's like real, like he did not like the second episode of X-Files. He said that one was boring. And I don't like that episode that much.
What's
either.
It called?
It's the one with the it's the second episode where Mulder goes and they're doing the experimental planes.
Oh yeah.
And they capture Mulder and
that's got like Seth Green in it.
Green is in it.
Does it hold up? Does the show hold up or not?
The first season, there's some, you can tell it takes them a little while to find their voice as far as like the kind of stories they want to tell. Plus, there's a limited budget. Like there's one episode, I don't think it plays well with a computer that kind of takes over a building.
Yes, I remember that one.
I think it's got Ghost in the Machine or something like
Yes.
that. That one doesn't really hold up that well. But I was kind of surprised because there's episodes we're watching now that I thought were later season episodes because of how good they are. One is Darkness Falls, one with the insects that come out at night.
Yes.
That's a
Okay.
great episode. It's a first season episode. And it looks like a movie. Oh, what's interesting too is
Are you watching the Blu-rays?
Yeah.
Okay.
I took him to see The Thing. He loved The Thing. He loved it. I mean, he thought it was great.
Your son's got great taste, man.
And we started watching X-Files, and one of the first episodes is episode called Ice, which they admit was heavily inspired by The Thing.
Mhm.
So after we watched the episode, David said, "Oh man," he goes, "That episode reminded me of The Thing."
You know what he might really enjoy? Mike, did you watch Fringe?
I did. I didn't. I thought it's one of those I liked watching one time through, but I don't know if I'd ever go back because the show really
it
became
kind of went off the rails a little bit,
but it came in. The last season was good.
it came in strong at the end. But I
But
thought that was like it was more like a modern X-Files with a little Lost twist to it.
I thought.
in a sense.
I thought once what was the character's name? Who is John Noble's character?
Walter.
Oh.
His son. Who was his son?
He was played by Jeremy Jackson.
When they blinked him out of existence and he had never existed, I thought that completely derailed the show because at that point, I think even the writers got
you're
confused.
waiting for the whole from.
Well, no, it was like, well, he would like, oh, I remember when this happened. Oh, wait, that didn't happen. Did that happen? And you'd be sitting there going, did that? Wait, it was like it just got so confusing because they blinked him out of existence.
Dude,
But anyway,
that show though for John Noble's performance as Walter though, I think is worth watching. It's
well, the dumbest thing was when they had what's her face imitating Leonard Nimoy.
Oh, where she was trying to do his.
I forgot he was in that. I forgot he was in that show.
Yeah,
completely.
he was in that show.
Yeah.
But then, like, he possessed her body.
Oh, and she was
and
talking like him.
It was like,
why are you doing this? Why are you
I
doing
remember
this?
Mike.
Oh,
You know what?
it's so bad.
I still have some emails from way back then because how we would used to do this, like me and Mike and Matt, and then some other people sometimes, we'd be on this chain email where we discuss Lost and Fringe and stuff. And Mike's like, I remember Mike getting very frustrated. I might have these emails. I might have to share them. And it's just like, Mike's like, if they don't do something like, because we found out Fringe was renewed for the 5th season. And Mike's like, they better land this plane because they're lucky they're not wrapping this up in some kind of comic book miniseries or something, because up to now, that's what they deserve. But they did get
that's
season.
right. That's what they used to do when they'd cancel a show.
Yeah, they're
would
like,
have to,
oh, well, here's the comic miniseries.
the
but-
official.
But it's going to be interesting on his Lost journey. And I do at some point want to talk a lot about Lost on this podcast because when Lost was airing, it was a very special time for all of us. I think it was sort of this unifying thing at work, and we all talked about it and theorized about it.
I told Jared, we just watched, we're on, they just found the hatch and we were watching it. And I just remembered we'd go to work and every single thing that we saw in the hatch, we would try to like, what does that mean? What does that mean? What do you think that means? And then we'd find people would post pictures from the show of the hatch, the mural that was on, and we're like, what does this mean? There's a number here and blah, blah, blah. And it was actually a little bit of nostalgia watching that, thinking of that, how we just were so into it. It was insane.
Yes. And it will be because, I think all of us, the 6th season's weird, and the 6th season is a magic trick you can really only pull off once, because once you know what the trick is, it doesn't work as well anymore.
Mhm.
But I'm interested to see if you watch it through I'm interested to see what David will think about that. And
he's very independent with his opinion. He doesn't ape me. He didn't like Attack of the Clones. He thought it was boring.
okay.
So, and I like Attack of the Clones. I think it's fine. So it's
Well-
interesting. That's that point when your children start becoming, like I always say, like one of the weirdest moments being a parent is when you have your first conversation with your child and you're like, wait a minute, I just had a conversation that wasn't about cars.
Or pooping in my pants or something.
Yeah.
Although I still talk to my daughter about pooping in my pants a lot. But yeah, so that's all good. We want to keep up with David's journey through these things. So maybe we'll have a segment or something on the show, because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a good
And
idea.
plus, anytime I can talk about Lost is a good time. So we'll have to make that happen. So, but hey guys, for now, hopefully we're back doing regular weekly shows here for the next few months. We're gonna keep you entertained. We got a lot to talk about. Not to get off on a tangent, just today there was a great trailer for Andor released. It looks
Outrageously
great.
good.
Although some of us have been very burned recently.
I'm gonna keep tempered expectations around.
We've touched the eye of the stove while it's hot. And but look, I thought the trailer looked great. I have complete faith in the people behind the scenes of this. If you like Rogue One, I think Andor is gonna step up and really be a great companion to that film. So and of course we'll be talking about that more in the coming months. But for now, guys, we're gonna go back to our tubes, sign off, eat some nutrient paste, and we'll look forward to the next time we meet here in the 25th century.
You know you can't live without this content. So subscribe to The Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us next time as we take you into the 25th century.